Hey peeps, welcome to another Power-Packed Phillips podcast. If you guys would, please grab your spiral notebook that you are going to be taking notes in. Your spiral notebook that you're going to be taking your notes in. Remember, as the year goes on, we're going to have one spiral for your classwork that you leave in my room. You're going to have a second spiral for your notes. I'm going to remind you, please do your notes with a pencil. And I must say, that is a fantastic looking spiral. Marvelous, darling, marvelous. All right, if you would, please write in your spiral that this is lesson 1.1, chapter 1, lesson 1. Your training for the Hunger Games begins. Please write, evaluate expressions. Lesson 1.1, evaluate expressions. When we say the word evaluate in math, we're talking about solving. We're talking about solving. So please make yourself a note. Evaluate means to solve. When we're talking about expressions, we're talking about a problem that has numbers, letters, and some sort of operation. An expression has to have numbers, letters, and some sort of operation. It can be adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Another vocabulary word that I would like you to write down, please. Please write down variable. Variable. Variable is simply a letter that we use in math. Variable is a letter that we use in math. For example, right here we have the variable n, the letter n. This is the variable y, the variable c, and the variable x. Variable is any letter, A to Z. If you would, please make yourself a note in your spiral. Make yourself a note in your spiral that multiplication can be written several ways in math. Multiplication can be written with a number touching a letter in parentheses. This means a multiply. Multiplication can be written with a dot. And multiplication can be a number touching the variable. So on your paper, you should have multiplication and 3 different ways to symbolize multiplication. On your paper, make yourself a note that division can be written this way, or now that we're preparing for the Hunger Games, division can also be written with a fraction bar. Make yourself a note, division can be written this way, or it can be written with a fraction bar, This way will probably be the most common way you're going to see it on the EOC. So let's make ourselves a note. Please make yourself a note. I've put stars. This is probably the way they're going to show division on the EOC. And we'll go back here and make ourselves another note. More than likely, this is how they're going to show multiplication on the EOC. BRB. Guys, please write the expression 6y on your paper, and then please write y equals 2. Remember that this is an expression because I have a number, I have a variable, a letter, and they are touching each other. We said up here when they were touching each other, that meant multiplication. So some of us are going to want to write the problem like this. 6 times the letter y. That is really a bad way of writing it because we don't know if this means the letter x or if it means multiplication. So over here we have a little note. You don't have to write it down, but just read it. When we're using a multiplication symbol, we might want to use the dot instead of an x to avoid confusing the multiplication sign with the letter x. Again, this would be a bad way to write the problem. It might be better to write the problem with a dot. So, on your paper, please write 6 dot for multiplication and then the variable y. Now we're going to do what's called substitution. So pretend that a player, in this case a basketball player, gets hurt. If this basketball player gets hurt, they have to substitute someone else in his spot. So he gets hurt, he leaves the game, they substitute someone in his spot. So here we're going to substitute, we're going to take out the variable y and we're going to put 2 in his spot. Now, easy peasy, we can solve the problem. 6 times 2 gives us 12. Please write the second expression on your paper, 8 fraction bar y. Remember, this is an expression because we have a number, we have a letter, and in this case, our operation is going to be division. We said earlier on the EOC, they're going to try to trick you. The fraction bar means division. So, just like we said before, if a basketball player gets hurt, he has to leave the game and they have to put a substitute in his spot. So let's rewrite the expression. We'll say that this is 8, and we'll do the division the old-fashioned way, divided by the variable y. We are going to substitute 2 for the variable y. We will take out the y and we will put 2 in his spot. 8 divided by 2 gives us 4. If you wanted to, visual people, I have no problem, you could have done this. You could have crossed out the letter y and you could have put a 2 in a spot. Now you have 8 divided by 2. That still gives you 4. Just another way to look at the problem. Please write the expression y plus 4. Again, our player gets hurt. He has to leave the game. We have to put a substitute in his spot. So the letter y gets hurt. He leaves the game. We have to put the number 2 in his spot. 2 plus 4 gives us 6. Please make sure that's written on your paper. And our last expression, please write 11 minus y. We have a number, we have an operation, and we have a letter. our player gets hurt, pretend, we have to put someone in his spot. In this case, Y is going to get hurt. 2 is going to go in his spot. 11 minus 2 gives us 9. All right, guys, as we wrap up this podcast, a couple of key questions to ask yourself. Will you always substitute the number 2? Well, let's see. In this example, we would substitute the number 4. In this example, we would substitute 1.2. Here we would substitute 8. Last problem, we would substitute a fraction. So the question is, are you always going to substitute the number 2? Absolutely not. No. The other key question to ask yourself, will the variable, nice vocabulary word, or letter always be Y? Well, we have a variable of X here, a variable of G, a variable F, and a variable of K. So will the variable always be the letter Y? No, it will change from each problem. All right, guys, it's going to wrap up this podcast. Hopefully you have a better understanding of variables, expressions, and substitution. If you have time left before we switch centers, you may play any of the math games on your iPod. Later.